Surviving America's Autocratic Oligarchy. Welcome to Law and Society. Please subscribe and let's talk about what's happening in America and because of America around the world. First of all, I'd like to start by saying what I said before, that this is a time for Americans to conserve, observe, exercise restraint, and show courage. By conserve, I mean, you know that there's a recession coming. You can feel it. Inflation keeps going up and up and up. Cost of living keeps going up and up and up, but the wages don't go up and up and up. We're seeing that the budget being played out, the proposal that was passed by the House, wants to do away with massive amounts of debt by doing away with programs like Medicaid. Although they did not explicitly state that they would cut Medicaid, it's very difficult to see where they're going to get the trillions of dollars in debt that they will have to incur when they are extending the tax cuts to the rich. And this whole time, over the last 5 years or so, the K-shaped economy, where oligarchs have been getting richer and richer and richer, and the working poor have been getting poorer, and the middle class is stagnating and then getting poorer. It's just not a sustainable economy. By observe, I mean look at how other people on the other side are experiencing this reality. So one of the things I started doing after the election was I said, okay, I have to expand what I'm listening to. So I don't listen to all the episodes, but when Elon Musk gets on the Joe Rogan show, I want to listen to what they have to say. So in the latest episode, Elon Musk essentially, he says that the Social Security scheme is a giant Ponzi scheme. Then he goes into explaining how it is. When every American who gets Social Security or any Social Security benefit knows that they benefit from it, and it's an earned income because people are paying into it. Yes, you have to keep paying into it in order for it to keep having the funds that's needed to give you money when you retire. And that's the scheme of this Social Security, is that it keeps a certain amount of your money in abeyance. So it operates in many ways like using that money to pay out the current Social Security beneficiaries. And that's paid by future generations and by workers. And that's how Social Security should work, and it works. It's not a Ponzi scheme. Then you have Elon Musk going and talking about the waste, fraud, and abuse, and how about the mostly waste. And then you go and it suggests you to go to doji.gov. And I suggest everybody go to doji.gov and figure out what that website is about, because there's a lot of data there. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's probably accurate, most of it, unless they change the decimal point a couple of places and change $8 million to $8 billion. So people have to go to Doji and they're going to have to inspect that. That's not my job. My job is to look at it and tell you, it's up there, doge.gov. You can go and check, and you can go and see if you can make sense of it. You can see where the spending is coming from. You can see what they're saving on. You don't really know exactly what they did to save that amount of money from that department, but you know that they say that they're saving it. So the flip side of it is that they're saving it by cutting programs. And when talking about programs that provide help to the needy for food and for medical and health reasons, instead of saying, he lies, because saying that we're not withholding those, because those cases are currently in courts talking about withholding aid, and if the Supreme Court is holding on to that case, I don't know why, but the Ebola program, the Ebola prevention program, Elon Musk calls the Ebola reinfection program. So and he does this without being challenged by Joe Rogan. And you observe it and you realize that you look at the people count and there's 3 million plus people have watched that in like less than 12 hours. So you understand the impact of that disinformation, or at the very least misinformation, by guiding and pointing and misleading people into believing things that are not entirely true. So I implore people to go and check out Joe Rogan and other right-wingers. You know, I'm keeping it at Joe Rogan because I can't go deeper into that hot mess. And then exercise restraint. When I say that exercise restraint, I mean don't pick every battle, but pick battles regarding every issue that comes up. Like, people have been saying, yeah, I don't want to die on the transgender issue hill. Well, you don't have to die on any of those hills. You just have to pick your battles correctly so you may be able to pursue a stronger legal argument in court. So when I say restraint, I mean peaceably protest. Remember that no matter how much intimidation goes on the other side trying to provoke you, that they're just trying to provoke you. This owning the libs and trolling what we would probably despise. Be ambivalent to their advances of their provocations. You know, be ambivalent to their provocations. And be courageous enough to stand up and speak the truth when the time comes, when it's necessary. Because in this time, as we walk through this valley of uncertainty, suffering, loss, we have to unite. We have to hold each other together and remember that we endured as a country a lot in the last 2.5 centuries. That we are still dealing with the remnants of racism very much today. But we have come a long, long way with the beginning of the Emancipation Proclamation, and then with the 14th Amendment, and then with the application of the 14th Amendment, and then the expansion of the 14th Amendment into other discriminatory areas that talks about equal protection under the law. I mean, there's also equal protection under the law in the 5th Amendment. So you have to look at the progresses we have made, remember those times, how we endured, and come to an understanding that in 2025, we are awake to the realities of our history. And if we haven't been even in 2025, then people are really, really not paying attention. If you listen to focus groups, and I've been listening to some focus groups through The Bulwark by publisher Sarah Longwell and many other amazing reporters, and Tim Miller and Bill Crystal. So I was listening to focus groups, and you can see that once the youth, young men between 18 and 29, get into the Joe Rogan, Charlie Kirk direction, their whole understanding of what is happening is warped, because it comes from a place where somebody like Elon Musk can go and propagandize and throw out misinformation and be vague and accuse Social Security of being a Ponzi scheme, and it is just accepted by Joe Rogan, who is then trusted by millions and millions of people. So, in order to push back, we have to really assert ourselves and speak truth to power. Because, we are, and because we are more and more speaking truth to power, we are seeing plutocrats trying to disengage us like Elon Musk did with Twitter and X, to hide the truth, to have a huge page on Doji, which is like a mountain of information, but you just need one specific plant in that mountain, but you can't find that plant. Because he gives you a mountain of information, but not the answer you are seeking. In where did that savings come from? Whose money did you cut? What aid did you freeze? Because that is less important to somebody like Elon Musk, who himself says that he's there to make the government more efficient. But hobbling the government, slowing down how Social Security works, slowing down the IRS by drastically reducing and firing tax agents is not how you make a system efficient. That's how you run a system aground. And that's why we have to keep on pushing and making sure that no matter how much they try to push us down, we have to speak up. And we have to speak up correctly. We have to move forward with hard work, with a hope and persistence and patriotism for the greater good, to seek a more perfect union. And we have a right to make sure that we are not individually harmed and our property is not harmed. Those are the two rights that our laws give us, remedies for. So if you are being bullied or you are being intimidated by Proud Boys and people to a point where your business is being harmed, you have a cause of action against the Proud Boys. If you have a state actor who is saying, like the federal government, there's a transgender ban, that's violation under the equal protection of the Fifth Amendment as it applies to the federal government. If states follow suit and come up with legislation that discriminates against transgender people, that's discrimination on the basis of sex under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment that applies to states. I don't think I made this clear in a previous video, and so I wanted to make that very clear. I also wanted to bring to your attention certain news that we should be all aware of. U.S. aid has not been unfrozen, like Elon Musk claims, for medical and other extreme food reasons, because if it was, there wouldn't be a case about it still pending in the Supreme Court. So U.S. aid every single day that it is being withheld is starving people because it is not providing starving children with basic food paste made out of peanuts, sugar, and milk that is now just sitting in storage houses and sitting in docks because the apparatus that brings it to the people is not operational. That is the waste. That is the waste because it's sitting there getting bad. The medicine that is not reaching the people who need the medicine for HIV prevention and treatment, for example, have gone now for more than a month without treatment. That means their body is now getting a higher and higher viral load, which the medicine keeps down. And by doing that, it increases the incidence, the possibility of spreading HIV. If you think that, a HIV crisis in Mozambique cannot, flare up and go global, we're still dealing with the HIV pandemic, remember. Then about Ebola prevention. There's still no talk about that place getting its money restored, because journalists would report on that. And, U.S. aid needs to be restored. We need to call out to make sure that Medicaid is not cut from the budget, that Social Security and Medicare don't even come anywhere close. We need to make sure that federal employees who have been fired have recourse to either get their jobs back or to be able to be compensated for this hardship that they have been abruptly, arbitrarily, and capriciously been subjected to. With Ukraine, we already saw what happened in the White House, where Donald Trump and our government invited Zelensky into the White House to berate him, to set up and berate him and bully him in the White House in front of the world press, and Vladimir Zelensky did not. He did not back down. And that ticked Donald Trump off, so he essentially kicked Zelensky out of the White House. Well, whatever. Zelensky doesn't owe Donald Trump an apology. Donald Trump owes Zelensky an apology from inviting him into the White House and then insulting him. And now Zelensky is in the United Kingdom talking to all European leaders about gathering the force to combat Russia. So Ukraine will persevere. And the European Union is now more united than probably the United States of America. When you talk about trans rights, as I said before, you focus on whether there are state laws that discriminate, and those have to be litigated under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment on the discrimination on the basis of sex. And if there is encroachment and discrimination by the federal government, like Donald Trump is doing by his executive orders and thereby throughout the federal departments, that is discrimination on the basis of sex, violating the equal protection of the Fifth Amendment. So those are the legal recourses. And then there are the constitutional battles that are happening. The birthright citizenship battle is going up through the courts. And no matter what happens, I stand firm in saying that Donald Trump will not be able to take away the birthright citizenship of children who were born in the United States, regardless of what their parents' immigration status was. Because whether or not Donald Trump accepts it, the fact of the matter is these undocumented people or who have lived in our country for decades, who have children and family here and grandchildren here, they have been subject to the laws of the United States. They have lived in the jurisdiction, paid taxes to the United States, and have been productive citizens and have raised families here. And they're all subject to the jurisdiction of where they have decided to make their domicile. So the birthright citizenship is a losing argument for Donald Trump. Infringing on Congress's spending powers by withholding aid, that is not part of the president's powers. The president has the authority to take care that the laws are faithfully executed. Withholding money appropriated by Congress is not executing the laws, it is withholding from enforcing the laws. By shutting down departments and firing special employees like independent employees like inspectors generals and other high offices like Mr. Dellinger, who is the head of the Office of Special Counsel, who are for-cause employees because of the nature of their positions, and whether they can be fired or not, that is now in the judiciary, but Congress is the one that has vested that power by statute to those people. So if the Supreme Court says that no, the president can do whatever he wants with even the for-cause employees, that goes against the power of Congress to make laws and implement agencies and create positions like the independent inspectors general. So then there's the lawmaking power by saying we're just not going to enforce the law. If Donald Trump doesn't enforce the law, he's violating his oath because he's not taking care that the laws are being faithfully executed. There's an attack now on the 22nd Amendment because Donald Trump is trying to figure out a way of sticking around for a third term. And you see on the other side that Congress is relenting its powers. It's not doing anything, as it's not going to court, but congressional Democrats are joining other cases with friend of the court briefs telling them what the harm is and what Congress is giving up and how this is an infringement of Congress's powers. So these are all things that we need to be aware of that's happening in our country. That all of these things are now going through the courts. Okay, we have to exercise restraint, observe, bring in information, conserve our personal resources, and watch out for one another and inform one another. Go and check out Joe Rogan and Elon Musk's show, and you have to fill in the gaps and listen to what I said and try to fill in the gaps there by saying, okay, where is that money being saved? Who is being fired? Because currently all of these positions are frozen. All of these people are not getting paid. Some probably are. But the idea is that there is this shock across the federal workforce, whether it be the weather people or whether it be the defense or education, all of them. And the accountability of that comes through audits of inspectors general, through reports showing where there is waste or where there's fraud and abuse. That's not happening. Instead of that, we have doji.gov. So if you have the time and the resources to go through doji.gov and figure out what those numbers coordinate with, that would be a great help. There's some useful information showing what our expenditures are, but there's no way to figure out where the savings are coming from. Like, specifically, what are you cutting for that savings to come? And is that necessary funding for certain departments of our government, whether that be education or whether that be defense, whether that be NASA, whether that be the Weather Channel, whether that be the Department of Health and Human Services. So with all of these, I've gone on for over 20 minutes now. This is what surviving an autocratic oligarchy is going to be like. Because we know that Donald Trump and Elon Musk have grabbed America by the throat. And now we are in an abusive relationship where American democracy and the American people, a mass majority of American people, Trump voting people who are now going to town halls and screaming at their Republican representatives and senators for the lie of the fact that he was going to bring the cost of living down on the first day of him coming into office. He was going to stop the war of Ukraine and Russia within 24 hours of being in office. None of those promises have been kept. Prices of egg today is more than it was. It is nearly double of what it was at its highest during Biden's presidency. So the truth is coming out, and people are waking up, and we will see oligarchs and plutocrats being exposed, and we need to be ready to be able to point out their indiscretions. And also, let's see what Elon Musk, and he admits this in this latest interview, Elon Musk talks about how he was being pursued by the Justice Department, but now the case has been dismissed. He openly says that. So you can see what he's getting out of it. He's getting, as a defense contractor, money from our government. Here he's cutting places in order to save the ultra-rich money in their taxes, which of course includes him. He's the richest man in the world. And he's starving children in malnourished, drought-ridden areas of the world, taking away medicine from people who need it for HIV, firing federal workers who have been federal workers for decades, and cleaning house indiscriminately, and by way of that, destroying our government. So that's what we stand up for when the time comes, and the courage we need, we will get from each other. With that said, thank you so much for sticking around, for listening to me. Please like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon.